Thanks for listening to another episode of Castaway Consultants. Now, if you haven't already, please take a moment to go and give us 5 stars as well as a rating. If you give us a shout out, I promise we will read it out on the podcast. But any sort of support you can get us helps us get noticed in the algorithms. Thank you again, and now let's get started. Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we criticize former players in order to help new players hone in their game. And today we're going to be looking at another one of our rewind series, the Vanuatu Season 9 Premerge. And my name is Derek Kubicek. I have never seen this season before. I have almost no spoilers. I realized once I got into it, I recognized a name or two, but otherwise I have nothing going for me. So if you have seen this and you want to experience it with someone for the first time, that is my role. And I'm joined here by my 2 fabulous co-hosts.
I'm Ryan Stacy. I'm your resident superfan who knows everything about Survivor. I'm rewatching Vanuatu for, I don't know, 3rd or 4th time. I can't remember anymore. I know everything about the show, a little about most other things, but I'm here to give you my expert opinion on all things Survivor Vanuatu Premerge.
And I'm Josh Wessler. I am a near super fan of Survivor. I only have about 3 seasons left to watch, so I'm very, very, very close here, and I should be finishing sometime, I don't know, maybe this year. Now that might have a little bit extra time. I last watched Vanuatu back in 2015, I would say like late 2015, so it's been a while for me. 5 years to be exact. My perspective here is a nice look back perspective, memorability perspective, trying to gauge how good a season is based on how memorable it is.
And for those who haven't ever listened to a rewind before, or for those who have and need a refresh, Josh only watches the first episode, the merge episode, and the finale of each season with us. And then, like he said, he will give us a memorability test with some most memorable moments of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, right off the bat with that, I remember Vanuatu being fun, but I don't really remember a lot from the pre-merge, so I'm interested to see what comes up here.
Our goal here is we rewatch Survivor so you don't have to. There's 40 seasons of Survivor now. Hopefully we'll get more someday, but you're a busy person, maybe less so nowadays. But if you don't want to rewatch or revisit every single season of Survivor, that's what we're here for. We're trying to tell you what is must-watch Survivor. So if you only have a few seasons to go back and rewatch, we're here to tell you which ones you should. So the big question here is Survivor Vanuatu. Just the pre-merge so far, because Derek has only seen the pre-merge so far. So far, halfway through the season, is Survivor Vanuatu must-watch Survivor?
I'm going to go ahead and say no. I will say that the pre-merge, for me so far, and this is from everything I've seen, is solidly above average, but I don't know that it's a ton above average. It has been fun. There are some good characters, but I don't know that it's anything that really adds to the whole experience of being a Survivor superfan, at least from what I've seen. Maybe the post-merge will change my mind, and that'll make the pre-merge look better, but I don't think this is must-watch.
I'm actually going to echo the same thing. I remember having fun watching this the first time around, but just looking at some of the episodes, there's not a whole lot that I remember from it. Yes, I remember liking the cast, and I remember there being good dynamics, but if you're just trying to pluck out some contestants or some events that happened, there's not a whole lot there, at least from my perspective. I think that's going to change now in the post-merge. But as far as the pre-merge goes, if you really have to cut down on what you're going to watch for Survivor, I'm always going to recommend to watch mostly everything. But if you have to make some cuts, this might be one of them.
Yeah, I think you guys are both absolutely fair with your points. I like Vanuatu. I like the pre-merge. It's fine. It's more than fine. It's fun. Is there anything to write home about in terms of Survivor? No. I think the big thing is this is a men's versus women's season. I think the men's tribe is fairly boring. There's not a ton happening there. It's pretty straightforward. I love the women's tribe. I think they're extremely entertaining, very unpredictable, but that's half. You know, you got half. You're halfway there. But I still like the season. I like the pre-merge. But yeah, I think in terms of what we've seen so far, it's definitely in the bottom half of all the pre-merges we've watched. But like I said, if you can go watch all of it, do it. But if you can't, this is one you can probably cut. Maybe that'll change when we get into the post-merge. We'll find out.
Also, if you do need some like mouthwash or eye bleach after watching certain portions of Season 8, honestly, maybe Season 9 was perfect in its time for that reason.
I wonder if anything has to do with repeating a theme too soon, which Survivor loves to do.
Survivor does that.
But if you're thinking about men's versus women's, like we just had the season 6, so like we're a year and a half later, and maybe season 6 Amazon is a little bit too fresh in our minds still to come back to it right away.
And if we're comparing this directly to Amazon, pre-merge to pre-merge, Amazon's is far better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we'll see you in the post-merge. So from here on out, spoiler alert, we'll be spoiling everything that happens in the pre-merge, nothing in the post-merge. We won't talk about who wins the season because Derek doesn't know yet.
I do not know.
So spoilers to the pre-merge starting now. But obviously we just said it's not really like It might not necessarily be worth your time if you have a limited time here. So you can just listen to us talk about it.
Absolutely.
So before we jump into the episodes, let's go over the cast real quick. And Josh and I, before every non-returner season, we always play a little game to see how many people Josh can remember. And he got 4 out of 18.
Yeah, I'm surprised, actually.
And for people who know this season, it's exactly the 4 you would expect.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know what this means.
Yeah, again, we're not going to say like the actual names because of spoilers. Because, shocker, some of the people that I remember go far in the game.
Wow, what a big surprise.
Wow.
So let's go over this cast real quick. We'll start with the men's tribe, which is the Lopez tribe. We have Brady Finta, who is an FBI agent from California. Brooke Garrity, a document manager from Massachusetts. Chad Crittenden, a teacher from California. Notable thing about him is he has a prosthetic leg. Chris Doherty, a highway construction worker from Ohio. John Kenny, a mechanical bull operator from Los Angeles. John Palyak, also known as JP, a sales manager from LA. Lee Masters, also known as Sarge, we'll be calling him Sarge this whole time, a drill sergeant from South Carolina. Rory Freeman, a housing case manager from Des Moines, Iowa. And Travis Sampson, also known as Bubba, we're going to call him Bubba the whole time, a security officer from Tennessee. And then over on the women's tribe, which is Yasser, we have Amy Cusack, a coffee barista from Colorado. Dolly Neely, a sheep farmer from Pennsylvania. Eliza Orleans, a pre-law student from New York. Julie Berry, a youth mentor from Maine. Leanne Slaby, an equity research assistant from Wisconsin. Lisa Kiefer, a real estate agent from New Orleans. Mila, oh god, this last name, now I'm going to butcher this. Mia Galeo Talanza. Holy crap. A bookkeeper from Boston.
Is she a dinosaur?
The Gelatolanzosaurus Rex. Scout Cloud Lee, a rancher from Oklahoma. And Twyla Tanner, a highway repair worker from Missouri. That's our 18.
Now, I just want to be clear, because I try to be up to date on what's going on in Survivor. Of all these names, I knew exactly one. I feel the need to disclose that here. I don't know if this is a spoiler. I don't know what happens, but I do recognize the name Twyla. I didn't know that I would recognize it, but as soon as they went through their opening crawl in episode 1, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know this name. So, full disclosure, because I want to add credibility, that is the one thing that I am vaguely aware of.
You are also familiar with Eliza.
Or yes, I knew who Eliza was more because she's running for district attorney in New York City.
Yeah, I think so.
So I just know her from the Twitterverse, and I know her for her political stances, and then I knew that she played Survivor. I had no idea what season, but you told me she was here.
And you saw a little bit of her on The Amazing Race.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She was with Corinne on The Amazing Race.
That's right.
I can tell you where you know the name Twyla. It wasn't really a spoiler from Survivor because I remember mentioning it, and I was just like, "Oh God, is he gonna remember?" And then you remembered. So they did.
Thanks, Ryan.
They did an episode of reality star Fear Factor. They had a bunch of different contestants from like 6 different reality shows, and for Survivor, the representatives were Johnny Fairplay and Twyla.
Okay.
And that's where I mentioned her.
Gotcha.
So Twyla and Fairplay teamed up, and I think they were the second
What
team
a
eliminated.
combo.
That's a weird combo. I don't know why, but that's what it is. Okay, anything else before we jump into these episodes?
No, let's get to it.
All right, episode 1 is They Came at Us with Spears. Season starts off, we get a ritual. A bunch of Vanuatu tribesmen, they come out and bring our castaways ashore, divide them by men and women. And what's funny is they're pointing spears at everybody, and just a hilarious moment is nobody's pointing any spears at Rory because the tribesmen and Rory, they're both groups are black, and Rory's the only black person on the season. He's like, hey, nobody's pointing spears at me. This is okay. I loved it. I was like, that's great. The men and the women are separated, and the women are really treated like second-class citizens. The men are like given like they're part of this ritual, and the women are just there.
Yeah, they're just watching, and there's a lot of participation from the guys, and they get like special, I don't know if it was like soup or water or whatever, like to give them like good luck and all this
Cobbler or
stuff.
something like that.
Yeah.
The women don't get any, and this whole thing is to set up the men versus women season and create animosity from the women towards the men from the get-go, and I think it's very effective.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And they kind of had the reverse thing going on in the Amazon, where they talked about the Amazonian women being strong and powerful, and maybe like the land would grant them the ability to overcome. Which, I mean, Jenna did win the season, so I mean, maybe that means that a guy wins this season because the land blesses the men. I don't know.
The land decides.
The land
The
decides.
spirit rock.
And then we get to see a pig get brutally killed, and everybody's really shocked.
Screen.
Except Dolly.
Except Dolly, she's like, I watch this all the time. This is a pretty second nature for me.
This is a day at work. And then, yes, they put a spirit stone on top of a pole, and the Spirit Stone is supposed to grant luck, and they give the guys a chance to get it first. All 9 men will get a chance to get it. It doesn't matter. Brady goes first, and he gets it on the first try.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a good start for Brady, and one of the only memorable things about Brady.
That is fair.
And right off the bat, this is actually one of the things that I remembered from this season was this intro, just because it's so unique, and I don't think there was anything like it even leading up to this. And I don't even know like what entrances into a Survivor season would top this as like something that'd be this eventful. Because this is
throwing them all overboard with just their clothes in their bags.
True, yeah.
But this is a good intro.
Yeah, and it's just one that I remember right away. And the second that the title came up, that it was they came at us with spears. I'm like, oh, this one, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be a little terrifying to be these people. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early nomination for memorable moment of the season. I'm going to toss one out there just because I don't know if there's going to be any others.
So that they get sent off to their camps. The women on the way, Amy, Dolly, and Scout all want to stop for the night. And something notable about Scout is she has an artificial knee.
She's an older woman, by
She's
the
an
way.
older woman.
I mean, she's the Sonya archetype.
And I think if you ranked every single Survivor contestant from physically weakest to physically strongest, I think Scout would be the physically weakest person, period. I think she's dead last.
And if not dead last, then just in the bottom tier. For sure in the bottom tier.
There's a bottom echelon, and she'd be in it.
Yep, and I think she's the bottom of that one. I think I will plant my flag there. If I'm forgetting somebody, let me know, but I think it's Scout. Yeah, just because of the artificial knee. This kind of annoys people, so don't suggest stopping for the night. If everybody else wants to stop for the night, go ahead and stop for the night, but don't be the person to throw that out there.
Absolutely.
Don't rock the boat.
And it's tough when you're physically unable to, but unless you're like actually like collapsing, which you probably shouldn't on the very first day.
Yeah.
That's probably a bad sign, but unless you're essentially collapsing, just keep going.
Now, let's be clear. I mean, this was basically in the middle of the night. I'm halfway certain the only reason they found or saw anything is because the lights from the cameras were out there. So I don't know how organic that could have been otherwise, the light from the moon guiding them. But yeah, you just got to keep going. I mean, Jeff gave you a task on night 1. At least keep up the facade until tomorrow. I know the split was like 3 and 6, so like you're not alone in it, but yeah, don't suggest it and just stay with the bigger group.
And then over in the men's group, Rory tries to take charge. Don't want to be the leader. Just don't. If you walk all night, you walk all night. It's a bonding experience.
Right, because he was saying we could be more efficient. Who cares about efficiency? Like, don't be the leader for the sake of being efficient at finding your flag. I mean, it's a weird hill to plant your flag on.
Especially at night. It's not really going to matter.
Yeah, what are you going to do when you get there anyway? It's not a big
stand
deal.
around.
So as we get into it, the girls' tribe is very divided. Most of the women just want to sit and talk. Well, Scout, Twyla, and Leanne, they work really hard, and it's the classic conundrum. What do? Do you work or do you talk? You do what the majority's doing. So bad on Scout, Twyla, and Leanne.
Yep.
Majority rules.
Mm-hmm. If you're going to be a lazy tribe, you're going to be a lazy tribe. You got to be able to go with the flow. Now, this episode is really fast-paced because it was originally a 90-minute episode that was cut down to 45. If it seems like we're blowing through it, we're not. Survivor blew through it.
I was going to say, in fairness, the second we finished, Ryan turned to me and asked, so did you feel like you really got to know anybody in that episode? I'm like, no, I don't know anybody. And he's like, yeah, that's very common.
Yeah, it's a weak premiere besides the opening, in my opinion. I think it's a very weak premiere because of that. Because we're already at the immunity challenge.
Here we go.
Surprise!
And the men are kicking ass until we get to the balance beam. And famously bad opening challenge for Chris. He cannot get across this balance beam no matter how hard he tries. Even Scout can get across this thing. And the women win.
Yeah, it's balance beams and men's teams in premiere episodes of Blit tribe seasons like this. Not a good pairing.
Even more iconic duo.
Yeah,
I was going to say, so far, men versus women season and balance beams is... it's poetic. That's what it is.
This is a much tougher balance beam.
Yeah, this is a very tough balance beam.
Like, Chris actually had excuses here. Valid excuses compared to Amazon, but still.
And I think one underrated aspect, they had done a mud crawl before they got there, right?
Yep.
That mud was going to be caked on that balance beam, so it's going to be slippery. Still, you got to be able to do better.
Chad made it across, and he's missing a foot.
Right. I mean, not to pick the low-hanging fruit there, but yeah.
Sometimes the lowest hanging fruit is the correct one to pick.
Yes, it's the ripest.
So the guys are going to the first tribal council, and there's 4 really young, fit guys and like 5 older guys on the season. Even though Chad, he's still fairly young, it looks like. But we have the 4 young guys, which are Brooke, Brady, and the 2 Johns on the young side.
Chad is an old soul.
Chad's an old soul. And then we have Chris, Chad, Sarge, Rory, and Bubba, who are the 5 older men. The young guys, they want to pull in Sarge and obviously get rid of Chris, because obviously...
Yeah, dude can't cross a balance beam. We might have to cross a couple of those in the pre-merge.
Maybe in the very next episode. But Sarge, he's like, okay, if I go with these young guys, I'm 5th. But if I get the 4 older guys together to go with me, I could be 1. So that's what Sarge is going to do, and it's a very, very intelligent move from Sarge.
Very cerebral. I mean, you wouldn't think of it from a drill sergeant. I mean, just based on like archetype. But I thought it was an entirely appropriate move. Did they target? Was it Brooke?
Yep, they decided to target Brooke because he was arrogant. I think the actual reason is I've heard he's kind of nuts.
Yeah, just situation-wise, it's actually really, really similar, again, to the Amazon, where you have a group of people and they just find it fine to vote off one of the younger guys because you have enough other younger guys that you're not going to be hurt that bad in challenges. Like, that one guy's not going to make a difference because you have enough other athletic ones on the tribe.
And Survivor producers are not going to be brute strength challenges on a men versus women season.
No.
They're not going to do it.
No. There's going to be maybe one.
Yeah, and like an obstacle course, there'll be an obstacle that favors the men. 1, and then the women will catch up on everything else and win, because that's how it always goes. So yeah, you're not going to be hurting if you get rid of one of the young bucks. You'll be fine. But yeah, this is a great move for Sarge and the old guys. They call themselves the Fat 5. So we go to tribal council, and they're going to all come together and vote for Brooke. 5 votes for Brooke, the 3 votes for Chris, and then Brady just throws a vote on Rory because he doesn't like Rory for whatever reason.
Logic.
But this is a fine move. I mean, take your pick of the 4. Who doesn't get along with the others the most? Pick a young guy.
I would say normally you say the weakest not in your alliance, but these 4 guys are all pretty big and fit. Like, I mean,
none of them are weak.
Right. So maybe just
got to go attitude.
Get rid of the crazy one or the allegedly one who's not so stable.
Yep. Yeah, the arrogant one. Whatever reason, it's fine. This is a totally fine move.
Yeah, splitting hairs.
So, best player of the episode, Josh. Who you got?
Lee, for basically the reason that you gave. He found the opportunity to align himself and not make himself 5th in a group of 5. He paired himself with the Fat 5 and took out basically anyone else, and it would have been a good move. So, yeah.
Yep, echoing Josh. It's Sarge. He's in a power position going forward. I do think the Fat 5 need him, especially for this pre-merge. He's very much the Rupert of the season, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he made a very cerebral move and had a fantastic episode.
Completely agree. You guys said everything I was going to say.
Yeah, and I don't even know if Sarge is necessarily the quote-unquote Rupert of the season, just because Rupert is such a different person, but he is that, like, large, athletic...
That's
like,
what I mean. That's what I mean. Like, if you had...
Loud. The brute. Yeah, loud.
If you had to do the archetype, the Sarge is closest to Rupert.
Yeah.
So that's all I was saying.
I think that's fair. Josh, you got for worst player?
Disc-out. I mean, if it's someone who you're going to classify as potentially being the worst challenge person in all of Survivor so far, maybe she's the one, along with stopping along the trails, wanting to stop at night. She'd need to be dragged along in the mud crawl because of her knee. All signs point to Scout.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it with Christy a little bit before, but if you have any kind of hindrance, you need to try and find a way to work through that. A bum knee is one that's going to give you fits on Survivor, and between stopping and doing poorly in the challenge, I think it has to be Scout.
Not to mention the fact that she was part of the 3 that was not socializing enough and focused on building the shelter.
Yes.
So between those 3, it's easily Scout. What blows my mind is Scout is going to make the merge.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There were moments where I was like, I think the best player of this episode is Scout because she's still here.
How?
Every tribal council is a valid one to get rid of Scout in the pre-merge. But here we are.
Yeah, and just to kind of go back to Derek's point of whenever you have something that's going to obviously work against you, that you need to just be really open about that, be super self-aware about that. And I actually want to give honorable mention here to Chad, because he went through the entire I think first 2 days maybe, or first day and a half before revealing that he had a fake leg, and he basically just prefaced it with saying, you guys would say I'd like made the trek here all fine. Like there's been no issues. I've been helping with stuff around camp and all that stuff. And everyone's like, yeah, everything's fine. And then he took off his pant leg basically and showed them. And he's like, oh, well, basically no reason to vote me out because of this. Like I'm not going to be a hindrance in challenges.
He was like a magician revealing his secret. Yeah, no, I think this is, if you're going to come into the game, for anybody who has like a prosthetic leg, for that margin of listeners, this is, I think, the way to do it. Prove you can do it and then reveal the trick.
Yeah, you're not going to keep it secret the entire time you're there.
Maybe Chad is the best because he was also wearing the perfect pants for Survivor, the zip-off pants.
He was wearing the zip-off pants.
We always talk about it. They're here, baby.
We need to bring those back into fashion because these are the best article of clothing you can wear for pants. Zip-off pants. Zip-off cargo pants.
For Survivor.
No, period. Life.
No, so for Survivor.
Life in general. You can fit so much supplies in there. This is the perfect article of clothing.
You can tell Ryan's other podcast is How to Survive a Horror Movie because that is utility pants.
Utility pants.
Yep.
So if you ever go on Survivor, wear these. I don't even know if you can buy them anywhere anymore, but try. So before we go any further, we always make winner picks after the first episode of the season. Derek obviously is making his for the first time. Josh is trying to do his off what he can remember, if he can remember. And then I go from who I picked when I first watched this when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, however old I was when I watched this. So, but Derek, first time through, you don't know how it's going to go. Who is your winner pick?
So I had to narrow down to a couple people, but to be honest, it was about halfway through the episode. I saw one confessional, and it just gave me echoes of Game Changers. And I picked that person. But the people who I had as kind of finalists, I had Eliza, just based on confessional count and a little bit of a redemption story, just because she was very off-putting and very annoying. And we've seen those players go far and even win before. Mia had the first confessional, so that's a little bit like Sandra back in season 7. And again, she had a fair amount of confessionals and seemed to be well-positioned on her tribe in episode 1. And the other one was Chris. And I'll just say it was Chris. I picked him immediately. He had a confessional in the middle where I think the words, more or less what he said was, perfect. I'm on a tribe of all men. Men I can handle. It's the women that I'm concerned for. That says that, 1, he's going to make it far enough where he's going to be playing against women for that to pay off. And 2, he's self-aware enough to understand the different intricacies of playing with men and women. I'm sure they all do, but they give you an edit for a reason. So the second I saw this confessional, I wrote down Chris as my winner pick. I immediately put a cross through me and Eliza. It had to be Chris.
Well, okay, and then my question is, what did the second half of the episode, did you regret your pick at all?
So I will say, I had my pen clicked and ready because I wasn't sure he was going to make it through first tribal council. But honestly, after it was done, I'm like, okay, so maybe it's not redemption for Eliza. It would be the redemption story for Chris after episode 1. So I did regret it a little bit, but I knew that he was in a strong 5 and there was no reason for them to break up. So I was still fairly confident after episode 1. But I was sweating bullets for just a second there.
Okay. Josh, do you remember who you picked back in the day?
I don't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I wish I did. I remember liking a couple of people. I do remember liking just right off the bat. Like there weren't even that many people that you could really choose from because of this premiere. But I know that I remember liking Leanne. I remember liking John Kay. And that's all I really remember. Now watching around this time, I'd probably toss Chris in there as, like Derek said, the redemption angle. And then I'd also toss Amy in there. Honestly, there's not a lot like to any of those of why, other than I saw a little bit more of them than others, and it wasn't negative. Yes, we saw more of Eliza, but I did not think that she had a chance, basically. I thought that she could go a little bit and then just peter out at the end, or not even make the merge. So in the end, I landed on Leanne as my winner pick.
Picking a Wisconsin girl.
I know, it's rough. To be fair, I didn't know she was Wisconsin before this.
So I actually want to go back and say Sarge also did well. He was well positioned, but if you know anything at all about how I do my winner picks, I never pick the Rupert of the season, and Sarge is the Rupert, so out of principle alone, it would take a lot for me to pick that.
I made the mistake last time with picking Andrew Savage, just kind of in that type of person. I felt strongly about Sarge. I felt the same way about Savage, and I made the prediction at the beginning that, oh yeah, Savage is probably the person who would like make to the merge as a strong like leader type and then get like the first boot after the merge. And I was completely right about Savage. That's exactly what happened. And I just don't want that to happen again, so I'm just going to avoid it completely.
Sure. My pick was Brady back when I was a little kid because I thought it was cool. He was an FBI agent, and I liked how he climbed the tower to get the Spirit Stone. So that was my pick, and obviously I'll stick with it because I have to. That's the rules. If I could change it, I would, because Brady did not have a great episode.
Who would you change it to, Ryan?
I would probably change it to Sarge, because again, we didn't see a lot of people, and one of the few people we did see who played well was Sarge. Again, yeah, I kind of agree with you with that. Like, he's kind of the Rupert, and he could be, or an Andrew Savage type, could very easily be like a merge boot or right after the merge. But there's slim pickings. And I did like Sarge quite a bit. So I would have picked Sarge if I could, but Brady is my pick. One of my worst ever picks. Almost as bad as Ryan Aiken in Amazon.
And that's all right.
Episode 2, Burly Girls, Bowheads, Young Studs, and the Old Bunch. We gotta have shorter episode titles, man.
Yeah.
Jeez. So JP, he was on the outs in the last vote, and he asked Bubba about his place in the tribe. And Bubba is way too honest. He's like, hey man, you're a threat. I'm gonna be honest with you, you're just a threat. You gotta get rid of threats. Don't tell him that. And JP has this like crazy look in his eye, like, oh, who else is a threat? He just looks like an insane person. All this is bad. Don't be too honest. Don't be too crazy.
Agreed. Yeah, you could do all this behind his back. Why do it in front of his face? Also, just in general, you've already taken out one like physical threat, and that's okay to do. Like we mentioned, especially on like a men's versus women's season, it's probably not going to be a huge deal. But if you're just going to go all for physical threats, that might actually end up being an issue down the line.
And even if you are going to go for all the physical threats, because they're not in your lines, lie to the guy and say, hey, no, man, we just didn't like Brooke. It's all good. Just work hard. You'll be fine. Well, yeah, we like you. It's a total lie because you're a crazy person. But, yeah, lie to him.
What's hard about this situation when you've got, and this is me stereotyping, I get that if you have 5 older guys in any random season of Survivor, odds are the loyalty is gonna be there. I mean, that's the Rudy, that's the Rupert, it's the Sarge, it's the General. I mean, this is who they are. So you're probably gonna have a hard time cracking that alliance. But what you can do, you have to have the brains to bide your time. Survivor will shake it up. It will give you opportunities if you last long enough. So, JP, don't get confrontational. Pull a Brady. Endear yourself to the older men so at least you're the last young man standing. Make it to a tribe swap. Make it to a twist. Make it to a merge. Do something. Don't be getting angry about the fact that you're targeted, because everybody's targeted in some way or another. You just need to find a way to survive, and this is the wrong way to do it.
That's why they Outlast is in the theme. And odds are you're going to be in the bottom at some point. You know, if that's the case, you used to be the last one standing to maybe mix it up. And JP's not doing that.
Yeah, and if you're outwardly angered, and showing that, it's just going to cement yourself as the next one to go.
Oh, yeah. So we go to the reward challenge, which is a balance beam challenge. Because, of course. And, you know, normally I don't need to mention the reward challenges because they don't matter. The girls obviously destroy the men. But every time the men are really getting close, because they have to, like, they all stand in a line on a narrow balance beam, and they have to pass one another on the balance beam.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to get nice and close.
They do this a couple of times.
So they got to get it right up and be hugging each other, and they're playing really romantic music over the guys.
They're playing like ballroom dancing, just like the waltz. It's so funny.
It's really funny.
And I felt so badly for Chad on this one, because what do you do?
The men had like a 0% chance of winning this one.
At least it's a reward.
But when they win, Mia does a little dance across the balance beam. And they get back to camp, the men do, and Rory is pissed about how much of that, like, the celebration. What is that in, like, NFL when they used to do...
Unsportsmanlike conduct?
No, like, excessive celebation.
Yeah, same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a form of unsportsmanlike conduct, but yes.
And everybody else is like, well, dude, they won. What are you mad about, man? I mean, yeah, it sucks. I don't know what you want, dude.
Wow, Rory and having strong outward opinions on something.
Rory being opinionated. What a shock.
I would be a hypocrite if I said that, was it Amy who did the dance? Or?
Mia.
Sorry, Mia. So Mia did the dance. I'd be a hypocrite because I said that I was totally good when Sheehan did it. And come on, this is a group celebration this time. Let them have it. And if you are a fiery, competitive person, which obviously Rory is, you need to find another way to let your steam out. You cannot, like, make yourself the magnet for ire, because yes, you are in the majority alliance, and you know what? I don't think that this affects his standing. I do think that he was probably 4 or 5 in this group regardless, but all you're doing is giving someone a reason to flip.
Yep. He's easily number 5 now if he wasn't before.
Correct.
He's 5 out of 5. And we're going to go right to the immunity challenge. We get the classic blindfold immunity challenge where one person's the caller, sends everybody else out to get pieces. Luckily, these pieces are not gigantic like they were in All-Stars.
Just
Like
gonna
made of
injure each
wood.
other.
So nobody gets hurt really doing this challenge.
Yeah, these are puzzle pieces. They're flat.
They're flat.
I mean, they're plywood.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that's an improvement.
yes.
But it's Sarge versus Scout because Scout can't run. So it makes sense to make her the caller.
Hopefully
And
she
Sarge
can
is a
yell.
drill sergeant.
So you can imagine he's pretty good at yelling.
I'm assuming that he's just drowning out Scout and no one can hear Scout.
Basically, yeah. But Rory is just like shouting in the middle of the challenge, just like random stuff, like trying to help.
It was like the last piece was on its way back, and he was just shouting, La Pevy, La Pevy. And Sarge is like, shut up. You're screwing me up. Don't do that. Walk straight.
If somebody is in the leadership position, you have to shut up and let them do it.
Absolutely.
That's, one voice.
Especially if you're in the lead, I'm assuming at this point they're in the lead. Why even mess with it? And if you're behind, have it be their fault. Let them dig their own grave. Have it fall on them. Don't give anyone any reason to even put attention towards you.
I don't know what Rory was thinking, but the men win, so it doesn't really matter that much.
Doesn't matter.
Women are going to tribal council, and all the older women, they kind of want to get rid of Eliza because Eliza's super annoying and won't stop talking.
What?
Well, the younger women want to get rid of Twyla just because she hasn't connected with anybody. She just works really hard. But Dolly, who's in with the younger women, and I should say who's on which side. So right now, the younger woman is Eliza, Julie, Mia, and then Lisa, who is an older woman, but she hangs out with the young crowd. And then Dolly, so it's like a group of 5. And the 4 older women are Amy, Leanne, Scout, and Twyla. But Dolly does not want to get rid of Twyla because Dolly's like a farm girl. Twyla works hard. She respects that. So Julie is very smart. She's like, hey, well, why don't we just get rid of Leanne instead? And Dolly's like, yeah, okay, that works for me. Good move. If it doesn't matter, you just need to get rid of somebody who's not in the majority alliance. They should be going after Scout. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I don't know why Scout isn't even mentioned.
It feels like this particular cast, I almost wonder if they were warned about threat management. And we're starting to see the GOAT strategy become front and center. And they're like, yeah, Scout can make it to the end, but there's no way she wins. So let's keep her around.
And Scout's also kind of the leader of this group, and they don't want to get rid of their leader.
Maybe.
I wonder if it's just that period in Survivor where everyone's become aware enough of the strategy side of it that they're worried about the whole more the threat side. So I mean, we saw it with the guys taking out threats right away and really aiming towards them, and now it's the women the same way. It's maybe you should take off the really obvious weak people so that you don't lose challenges.
The obvious move is often the best move. Fun fact.
Oftentimes, yes.
Survivor producers, they don't want you to know that.
They want chaos.
But Amy doesn't like this because obviously if this happens, Leanne goes home, she loses an ally because she's in the minority. So Amy's going to do a pretty solid move. The 2 people in the chopping block, Leanne and Eliza, she brings them together and tells them, hey, you're the 2 that are going home. It's one of you 2, and it's all up to Dolly. She's the one who hasn't really committed yet because Dolly's been wishy-washy. She doesn't want to make anybody feel bad. Dolly's nice. And Leanne and Eliza are like, well, screw that. Let's vote Dolly out. And it was all just such a perfect move from Amy because she didn't suggest Dolly going home, but that's what she wanted. She did Inception on Leanne and Eliza.
Yeah, you need to serve it up on a platter for them, but you have to be careful with this because if you're kind of in between this, if they're 2 really tight groups, then you could be the one being targeted quickly.
But she plays it perfectly.
There's a scene in My Big Fat Greek Wedding where the Greek women, they're sitting at a cafe table, and the girl who's marrying into this Greek family, she's like, I don't know how to get them to do anything. And she's like, you have to make them think it's their idea. Then the husband immediately walks up, and the wife is like, oh, but what about this? And then he's like, oh, we need to do that. And she's like, oh, what a good idea. And then he's like, yeah, that is a good idea, isn't it? This is exactly what it was. It needs to be their idea.
Plant the seeds.
So Eliza's going to turn on the younger women and target Dolly. So we're going to go to tribal council. It's 5 votes for Dolly, 4 votes for Leanne. Eliza kind of played herself a little bit because their original plan was to get rid of Leanne, and that's what would have happened if Eliza hadn't flipped. It's good stuff. I love this. This is a good episode.
Classic voting out the swing vote, which I love to see. It is not necessarily a great game move at all times, but I mean, if you got someone who's wishy-washy, just cut out the X Factor. Duke it out like, women later on.
I can't really blame Eliza for swapping because you don't want to take that risk and be out second. And obviously for the 4 older women, Amy, Leanne, Scout, and Twyla, this is an amazing move. So I think this was the right move.
Right. I do agree.
Here's the thing. You just guaranteed yourself 3 more days.
And hey, 3 more days is better than not being here.
I do think they're going to have another vote the very next night, but, it's for optics.
Yeah,
there's 3 more days.
One more episode.
You get to survive one more vote.
One more night of screen time.
Yep.
So really excellent move taking out Dolly. I underrated pre-merge strategy wallop. I like it.
Yeah, especially in episode 2.
Yeah, that's not very common. Episode 2 is not normally like a great episode.
It's usually like a scout.
Yep. But here we are. So best player, I think, is obviously Amy.
It is.
She gets Eliza and Leanne in her alliance and takes out Dolly. Brilliant move.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, somehow turns the table as well because she was in the minority alliance and now there's ambiguity.
Worst player, I have Rory for his temper tantrum and just generally annoying Sarge.
I have a dishonorable mention for Rory just because he still is in the majority alliance and, he can coast this all the way to the merge assuming, nothing too tumultuous happens. I had Eliza because I do think that now she's kind of caught in no man's land on the Women's Alliance, where if you had to go vote immediately, now she doesn't have anywhere that she can hang her hat, because she was never really in now what would be considered the more powerful alliance, and she just backstabbed her 3 kind of alliance members. So now she's got no trust. I don't think she has any trust, and this will be confirmed later on, but she's got nothing.
She had a chance to do the right thing, which is to double down with this majority group now and get herself in with like Amy and Scout. She's going to go back. She's going to try and go back. And I think she had an opportunity, but she screws herself over.
Right. I guess the way that the episode painted it was Eliza was played into voting with this alliance. Not that she necessarily needed to, though there was an opportunity or a chance that she was going to go home because of Dolly. It was just kind of a really bad episode overall for Eliza and the situation that she put herself in. So I can't knock Rory too much, but yeah, Eliza, just because I don't know what her path forward is.
Yeah, and we have a disagreement right away in the second episode. So if you're new around here, usually since I don't watch these middle episodes, I'm the tiebreaker. And in this case, I'm going to side with Ryan. I think it's actually pretty easily Rory, just because, while he wasn't for sure in the 5th spot before, it seems like he's absolutely number 5 out of 5 in that main alliance, cementing himself just out of just idiocy. It's just not smart overall.
Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Episode 3, Double Tribal, Double Trouble.
Wow, is there going to be a double tribal?
No.
Oh. Okay.
So Rory doesn't really work hard around camp. He just goes and walks a lot, which is fine. You can talk about people behind their back when they're off on doing walks. But Sarge is going to go confront him about it. It's like, Sarge, I know you're a drill sergeant. You got to take that hat off and pretend you're like on vacation or something and just let it go, man.
Especially now, because you have 5 in your alliance. There's 3 in the minority alliance. It's really easy to force a tie and then force everyone to go to rocks. It's never ideal to go to rocks, but if you're one of the 3 like young buck fit boys, you absolutely want to go to rocks right now. That's way better than getting pagonged on your own damn tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And Rory, he's an emotional guy. I can see him being like, you know what? Odds are I won't draw that rock. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're not in that much of a power spot.
Especially with the risk of eventually having a tribe swap. You want to have people who are loyal to you. You never know what's going to happen.
Over on the women's tribe, Mia and Twyla get in a massive fight. One of the biggest fights we've seen on Survivor. They are just like screaming at each other. It's hilarious.
It is funny.
Mia's mad because Twyla said some comments about like Mia not working very hard and some of the younger girls not working very hard. So
this was at Tribal the previous night.
And Mia took offense to that because Twyla's right. The whole thing blows up, and it's really funny.
And honestly, it should be a non-talking point. I think Mia is almost entirely in the wrong. I mean, yeah, Twyla returned fire. That's never good. But what Twyla said at Tribal the night before was, everybody works. Some people do work harder than others, but everybody works. Everyone does their part. I mean, I thought it was a very diplomatic answer, and, Jeff likes to get answers to his questions. This wasn't pointed at anybody too sharply, and if it was, you gotta let it roll off your back. I mean, this is basically what happened with Rory last episode. Just let it roll off your back, Mia.
I think Mia protests too much. Someone touched a nerve. But Julie, Mia, and Lisa are going to talk to Eliza, and they're going to reform their alliance. Eliza's going to go back to this group. Terrible move for Eliza. Why would you go back to this group before? Now you're tied. Nobody trusts you. Congrats.
She's pre-law, not pre-math.
But Lisa's like, you know what? I don't trust Eliza at all, so I got a backup plan.
That was such a cryptic confessional. She's like, I don't trust Eliza at all. But don't worry. I have a backup plan.
Because she's going to flip.
Sure.
Sure. Why not?
She's like, I'm an older woman anyway. I just need to start acting my age. And actually, it's low-key really good from Lisa, because when the younger women had more of the power before they, their true personalities showed through, she was assimilating. And now she's like, oh, nope. Just gonna backtrack that a little bit.
If you can flip to 5th place in the majority 5 instead of being in the bottom 3, do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to be at the bottom of the alliance, but if it means that you're not in the minority, then sure.
Chaos is a ladder.
Yep.
Chaos is a ladder. Karishma, Littlefinger.
So what we're going to have here is both tribes are going to tribal council tonight. So we're playing for reward. Whatever tribe wins reward, those people will get to compete for individual immunity. So the men win the reward challenge because Scout can't use a grappling hook for whatever reason. So the men, they'll get to compete for individual immunity, and John K ends up winning. So John K's got individual immunity. He's safe. And we're going to do something kind of cool. John K is going to go to the women's beach and hang out there and do whatever. And for tribal council, he will get to give immunity to one of the women. So he can disrupt everything if he wants to.
I like it.
I like this too. This is a cool mechanic. More tribe intermingling, I think, is interesting. So I'm always on board for it.
And this is almost giving a hidden immunity idol sort of thing. I mean, if you're going all the way up to modern Survivor, he gets to save somebody. This is the equivalent of giving an idol.
So John K, he gets there with all the women, and he's like, hey, everyone who voted for Dolly go that way. Everyone who didn't go that way.
I love it. I love this.
I'm a little bit conflicted about it, because I think it annoys some of the women, and you're going to want to keep these alliances strong, especially since you're on the minority of your tribe. So you want to have this relationship with these people so you can work with them later. But he does learn a lot about this tribe real fast. He figures out basically all the alliance lines. If he was in the majority of the men, I'd like it more than I do. I think what he should be doing almost is just chilling and talking to everybody and just building social bonds with all the women. I think that might be a better use of his time than what he does.
I think I disagree. And this is maybe some revisionist history a little bit, but on his tribe, what has happened? There is a clear majority, and he knows he's on the outs, he's with the young guys, and he needs to fight every step of the way to try and get where he needs to go. So go to the women's tribe, just find out who's in the majority alliance and be like, I don't want to piss them off because they're most likely to make it the furthest. And then basically just be like, oh, 3 versus 5? Why do I give a crap about you 3? Like, you guys are probably gone if we keep doing like this. So I respect the move and just like, you know what? I only have a couple hours. Goodbye to you 3. I care about you 5. He does end up talking to everybody, and he susses out exactly what's going on. And even though they were a little bit put off by it, I think that his execution must have been perfect because nobody left with any hard feelings, at least none that got shown. And you have to believe they would have shown it.
Well, I mean, John K doesn't really matter in the long run.
He doesn't matter in the long run, but I mean, they have to fill their episodes with something.
You make a good point, though. You make a good point. You might have brought me around on that one. You do make a good point.
This is basically the opportunity to butter people up in case there's a swap.
Yeah. But what's hilarious is Eliza will not shut up.
Oh, and even like the girls who were in the minority vote, they're like looking across the beach and they're like, hey, look at that. Look who's talking. Still Eliza. She's not going to let anyone else talk. If Eliza's the only one that talks, it's probably okay for us.
It's probably a good thing.
And then when he goes over to talk to the minority group, Eliza eventually comes over and joins them just to keep talking because she wants the immunity necklace. I mean, fair, but chill.
I was like crying and it was like so stressful and they were like gunning for me, but then I like did this thing and John's like, what are you talking about? Why don't you just...
Yeah, she drive everybody up the wall. And eventually Lisa is like, Eliza, I don't trust you. And I was like, well, fine, I'll go vote with the other women. It's like, oh, God. A, don't tell someone you don't trust them. B, don't tell them you're voting with the other group. This is terrible.
Don't put a gun to somebody's head if they also have a gun to your head. Like... Because Eliza's like, I'll go vote with the other woman. And Lisa's like, okay, but I can also do that. There's no rules saying that I can't.
There's no steal a vote here.
I love the women's tribe so much. This is a great tribe.
There are 2 volcanoes on the island. It's Mount Yasser and the Yasser tribe. Dab.
So back on the men's tribe, Brady wants to get rid of Rory because that's the obvious crack. He's trying to get Sarge to come around. Sarge seems to be considering getting rid of Rory, but Chris is like, okay, not the time, Sarge. No. Stop all that craziness right now. Thanks, Chris.
Good for my winner pick so far. And the right move.
And you know what? Good for my winner pick so far because he's trying.
Yes.
Doing what he can.
He's doing what he can with what he's got. What can he do? We're going to go to the men's tribal council first, and it's going to be 5 votes for JP, 3 votes for Rory, because JP's the least stable of the young men, apparently. It's a fine vote.
Yeah, it's a little trickle down from last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who's the most crazy? Vote them out. Fine move. Yada, yada. Who cares?
Yada, yada.
The men's tribe's kind of boring. Let's go to the women's tribe.
Ooh, what's going to happen?
John ends up giving his immunity to Amy just because she's not in danger, so I don't want to rock the boat kind of thing.
I end up liking the move because then you're not angering the majority alliance. Because, I mean, he could have easily thrown this on,
Mia.
Mia got voted out here, yeah. So he could have given it to Mia. He probably knew that it was going to be Mia. But I like the move. And if nothing else, you are maybe pointing out who you believe to be an under the radar. So anytime you can throw a little bit of doubt in the middle of it, it's like a backhanded compliment. Like, here's the necklace.
Did to Amber.
Yeah.
And All Stars.
Exactly. It's calling someone out in tribal, and there's really no repercussions for it. So solid move by John. Subtle but solid.
And the votes come in because Lisa's going to flip on Mia. 5 votes for Mia, 3 votes for Twyla. Eliza's face is just gold. Congrats, Eliza. You played yourself. No one trusts you.
You got.
You had a chance. Like, this is your chance to just get a solid alliance.
All you had to do was not go back, and you screwed it up. And obviously, I think Mia is a great pick because she and Twyla butt heads so much. Just get rid of that anger from the tribe.
And if she's in the minority alliance and she gave a reason, and there's not a large gap between her performance in the challenge and someone else who was maybe on the block, perfectly fine move.
Since 2 people went home in this episode, we're going to give out 2 best and 2 worst players of the episode. So, Derek, who are your 2 best players of the episode?
I had best for the men's side. I said John Kay. He won immunity. He did wonders with dividing up the women into their supposed majority and minority alliances. He didn't rock the boat when he ended up giving up the immunity. And because he had the immunity, he ensured that he could not be the young buck going home. And I don't think the position of any other men changed. So that's why he was the best. My other best was Lisa, because I think she went from being somewhere in the bottom alliance to being in the bottom of the upper alliance. And if you can swap spots with Eliza, that's about as much of an improvement as you can hope for.
She moved on up to the east side.
Yes.
Yeah, Lisa is absolutely one of them. Flipping to the majority, proving Eliza to be untrustworthy. Great stuff. But on the other side, I actually picked Chris, just because he was the one who seemed to convince Sarge to keep the alliance strong and vote out JP. Don't know if Sarge would have actually flipped, but from what we could see, it seemed like Chris stopped him from doing something crazy. So Josh, you're the tiebreaker between the Chris and John K selection.
I'm going to go with Chris just because it seemed like the John K he didn't royally just mess up what he had in front of him. He did the safe play, which probably was a smart play. But
Chris also did the smart play. I want to point this out by keeping his alliance together.
By doing a little bit more action though, between with Sarge.
I mean, I think John K was playing with more fire and didn't burn himself. I don't usually like to try and push back on you a little bit, Josh, but I feel very strongly that John K deserves props here. But you know what? It's okay. Ryan, you can have this one too.
I'll take all of them.
I guess there was a larger negative effect at stake here for Chris and Sarge.
I agree with that.
Yeah, larger negative, but not as big of a positive. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm not bitter. I won't explode. I will compartmentalize my anger and be like, I understand.
As you should. And he will plot his revenge on Josh.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. It'll come.
Derek, who are your 2 worst players? And I just want to point out, it doesn't have to be one man and one woman.
When I wrote them down, I did it that way just because they each had to go to tribal. If it would have been like co-ed tribes, I would have done it based on tribe. So for the men's side, I ended up going with Rory just because he was already 5th on his majority alliance. But the fact that they were considering kicking him out and getting rid of that surefire thing means that he is really irking some people. So digging that hole a little bit deeper and making sure that he definitely is 5th, he did himself no favors. And then for worst, I had Eliza because she literally got the boot out of the majority alliance.
What?
and then wouldn't stop talking and annoyed the crap out of everybody.
Yeah, definitely Eliza, flipping the alliance, pissing off Lisa, talking too much, being on the wrong side of the vote, and disaster for Eliza. But I actually, I put, instead of Rory, I put Twyla. Yeah, she was on the right side of the vote, but she was fighting with Mia way too much, and she just seems to have kind of a poor social game overall.
I don't remember us talking at all about Twyla, so I can't really side with you on that.
We talked about her having that big fight with Mia.
Did we?
Yep.
Yeah, we said it was definitely Mia's fault, but Twyla returned fire when you should never do that.
Well, too bad. I'm signed with Derek.
Woo! Dang, I did it.
Rory makes sense here. Again, it's not a lot. Like it's more just kind of exposing the severity of the situation than anything.
But I think we can all agree that Eliza was definitely the worst.
Oh yeah, if you only had one award to give out, it'd go to her.
Episode 4, now that's a reward. So Lisa and Eliza fight after Tribal Council. Eliza fighting after Tribal Council. What?
Name a more iconic duo.
Yeah, I love this Lisa and Eliza feud. It just cracks me up. Yeah, again, don't fight after Tribal Council. Keep a calm head. You can be pissed as you want, but sleep on it first, at the very least. So Brady knows he's on the bottom, so he's going to start catching fish to try and prove that, like, hey, keep me over John K at the very least. So he catches some small ones, nothing too, not Rupert levels, but, it's something. And then we go to a reward challenge, and the women get help. The women win this memory reward challenge, and they're going to have a local tribesman named Da come in and teach them stuff. So Da comes over to their camp and just starts running around the jungle, showing them all this wacky stuff on how to survive on the island. It's pretty fun.
Sugar cane, there was a root
Tara
of some
root.
kind. Yeah, tara root.
Bunch of stuff.
Taught him about crabbing and stuff like that. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, I actually remember this.
Yeah, they do this a couple times over the series. I always think it's fun.
Yeah.
Just get some outsider, not contestant in the game to show up and watch them try to communicate. It's kind of fun.
I think the sugar cane would be the most exciting, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it also has just like long-term payoffs too, because they're better equipped to actually like do these things going forward and keep themselves strong in other ways.
On the men's tribe, Rory and Sarge continue to bicker.
Wow.
And so it's, same old. Brady's like, hey, let's vote out Rory.
Again, this is the right angle for the Minority Men Alliance to work. Do they have much of a chance? I suppose we'll find out, but this is the correct move.
Yeah.
And he's not being like angry about it either. It is more subtle as you can be, during the 11th hour, but he's doing the right thing.
He's trying. We have a puzzle immunity challenge, and the women just crush the men. It isn't close at all because the men can't communicate. Rory's kind of the caller versus Eliza, and nobody's listening to Rory. Not entirely Rory's fault. It's kind of a bunch of egos colliding, but the women, they come together as one unit and just destroy the men. It comes down to you got to have that one voice, and that one voice should be competent, but you can't have 7 voices yelling all over each other.
Yeah, and it probably shouldn't be someone who you are very clearly annoyed with, like Rory.
Maybe it should have been Sarge, but I think Rory said he was good at puzzles. I think that's why he's the caller.
I guess.
This is kind of a lackluster episode, I think, because we're going to Tribal Council, and 6 votes for Brady, 1 vote for Rory. I kind of thought it should be John K, because at least Brady's catching fish, and I really don't understand why they didn't vote out John. We're never given a good reason as to why.
We aren't. You have to wonder if, again, it's more that threat level where they're not worried about John as much. But I think you're right. I think it is the wrong move to vote out Brady because John has connections on the women's tribe. If a twist is coming, a twist is coming. And spoiler alert, a twist is coming. I think they should have voted out John K here. And I actually don't think it's that close because if nothing else equal, the fact that there's a bridge between John and the women, burn that bridge. At least Brady almost has to come back to you in the event of a swap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best player, I had John Kenny because he didn't get voted out for some reason, and he also teamed up to help vote out Brady. He recognized it was a lost cause and just did it. And also, there wasn't that much good stuff here.
So for my best player, I wrote down Amy, Leanne, Scout, basically every one of the women in the Majority Alliance who didn't get angry when they got back to camp because there's nothing else to differentiate. I didn't think that the guys' team played correctly because they should have voted out John K. I think that's a fair argument for why he hung around, but I mean, if the reason they're keeping you is because you're a goat and I don't know what the answer is, then, whatever, but it's not great. You're right. This is a hard one to pick.
I'm going to go with Ryan just because I don't think Derek actually gave a name. One single name.
There is no single name.
Yep, I'm going with Ryan then.
Okay.
John Kay didn't play well, and then all three of the women who played best played the same.
There's too many people left in the game to not at least try to default.
Watch the episode
Just a
before you
default
decide
one.
that.
John Kay survived.
John Kay's like a default choice, but
yeah.
at least it's a
He survived and he shouldn't have. That's enough for me. And this, when there's nothing else.
Yep.
Worst player, I had Rory for his poor performance in the challenge, and again, his social game just being terrible.
Yeah, I had Rory.
Yeah, works for me.
Who cares about this episode except for the fact I've lost my winner pick.
Haha.
There goes Brady. Not shocked. So I'm going to switch over to Bubba.
John Kay.
Bad call. My pick at the time, and I kind of stand by it. I kind of like this pick. Switches over to Bubba. Just because of the majority 5, Bubba seems super likable. Everybody seems to like him. And I like his confessionals. And he seems to have like an understanding of the game on some capacity, which is more than can be said about some people on this season. I think Amy is another really strong choice to switch over to. But at the time, I picked Bubba, and I like the pick.
It's okay.
It's going to immediately backfire.
Immediately.
Because Bubba's going next. But what can you do? All right, episode 5, Earthquakes and Shakeups. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy because we're in the middle of a confessional with Leanne, and then an earthquake happens. Like a legitimate earthquake. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I actually don't remember this.
Yeah, it's just in the middle of...
Just a casual.
Rocks the island, man. So, you know how I picked Bubba as my winner pick? Because everybody liked him so much, and he seems to be getting along with everybody. Yeah, we're going to open with a fight with Bubba, Chad, and Sarge about sleeping arrangements.
And Bubba choosing a very weird hill to die on.
Bubba's being a jerk about it.
Yeah. Like, hey, can I just sit in your spot? The smoke always blows this way. Why don't you go fly a kite? This is my spot.
It's like, go build a bridge and get over it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was like, there's no difference between the sleeping spots. Well, why don't you switch then, Bubba? No, I'm not going to switch. Oh, man. That's unfortunate. So each tribe has to pick a chief, and Sarge and Scout are the 2 obvious ones. And what it's going to be is a tribe swap, a kind of an interesting tribe swap, which I really, really like. So Sarge and Scout play rock, paper, scissors. Sarge wins. And he gets to decide who is going to divide the tribes up. He picks Scout. So Scout is going to divide the tribes. And then when they're all done, Sarge gets to pick which one he goes on. And Scout gets the other one. So I think Sarge plays this brilliantly, Let Scout make all the tough decisions, and then Sarge can reap all the benefits. So I think Sarge plays this perfectly.
Absolutely.
So what the new swap is on the men's tribe, Lopevi, Sarge, Chris, Chad, and John Kay, and they are joined by Twyla and Julie. On the women's tribe now, Yasser, it is Scout, Amy, Leanne, Lisa, and Eliza, and they are joined by Bubba and Rory.
And for the record, Lisa actually was not picked in the schoolyard pick, and she chose to go back to she got to pick which tribe she was on.
Yeah, she was the only person not selected, so she got to choose her tribe, and she picks the right tribe because the women have the majority on that tribe.
Correct.
So everyone does pretty well. With the people who have power, Scout, Sarge, and Lisa, they all do a good job, I think. So on Lepevi, Chris and Twyla bond quite a bit because they both work in road construction. Like, they're both on highway construction teams. Just a fun little thing, like, oh, you have the exact same job as me. That's cool. Hey, man, if I can find another cameraman, and we'll make the cameraman alliance.
I like it.
Sure.
Why not? That's whatever you can bond over someone with.
True. That is very true.
So we get to the immunity challenge, and Bubba has kind of realized something. If Lepevi throws challenges, they have 2 women to get rid of before there's any issues, and that way they can go into the merge with the men having the majority. But if Lepevi crushes the Osser tribe, the men are going to go down in numbers. So Bubba's thinking long term, like, hey, we need to get to the merge with men having the numbers, so the women could just pick us all off. So Bubba is thinking ahead. So he's going to shout at Chris, hey, Chris, think about the merge. Just in front of everybody.
I remember that part now.
He's not about subtlety.
No, he's not a subtle man, Bubba.
But at the same time, he's right.
He's right. He's absolutely right. We're going to go into this merge. The men are going to be down 4-6.
I mean, if you're just going to shout it out like this, do you literally just go all out and say, yo, throw the challenge? We're screwed over here.
This is what we call no half measures. You either need to shut up and just play it cool, or you need to spell everything out for the men. Because how much did Chris pick up? Don't know. Would they have thrown in the challenge? Don't know.
Do you know who did pick something up, though?
Amy.
Because, again, subtlety is not Bubba's strong suit, but yeah, no half measures. This is one of your How to Survive a Horror Movie rules, but it absolutely applies here in real life. If you're going to say, I'm a dead man walking, just shout and be like, guys, I'm a dead man walking. Throw the challenge. And then, I mean, that'd make for really poor TV because, in theory, the women could do this exact same thing. I mean, they could,
Oh my God.
You could end up with two tribes trying to out-throw the challenge to each other, and then Jeff says, okay, I will burn your camps to the ground.
No, what
if
it would
you
end up
don't
being
compete."
is it would end up being Bubba and Rory versus Twyla and Julie.
Be like, all right, who actually wants to win this challenge? And those, all right, you four are running the whole thing. Go. Or you can be like, you know what? Both tribes are going to tribal council.
You know, that is the feat that you could hold to the fire. Is Jeff being like, we just did a double elimination. If you're gonna be like this, we can go ahead and speed this up.
I don't know if Jeff would hate that or love it.
I think he'd be okay with it once, but if they showed up again and they tried to throw it again, I think he'd start to talk to producers.
Yeah, real interesting, man. That could have been really fun. But Rory ends up just blowing the challenge with some knots. You can't get him untied fast enough, and Yasser loses. So Rory and Bubba are in huge trouble. Amy obviously wants Bubba out because obviously he's openly plotting against you. Eliza is like, hey, we should get rid of a girl. What?
Hey, maybe she sees no future with any of the women on her tribe.
And that's fair, but the women have the majority. You don't say that. She's like, oh, maybe we should get rid of Scout. Well, I mean, yeah, Scout can't do anything.
Yeah.
But what are you thinking? And then, like it's not going to pay out, but don't you want these people to trust you?
I think she's way past trust.
Now she's just throwing sticky stuff at the wall, we'll say, and just hoping something clings.
It's 6 votes for Bubba, 1 vote for Rory. This is the right move. You gotta get rid of the person who did that.
This might be the easiest vote.
Derek, who do you have for best player?
For best player, I read between the lines a little bit. I said John Kay. I said that he needed a swap badly, and he got it, and they ended up winning immunity, and he already has bond with the women, so he could go with Twyla and with Julie if he wanted to try and at least tie it up on his side of the tribe, or he could stick with the men, and there are 2 easy votes before him, whereas before he was last. So he moved the most up.
That first thing isn't anything John did, though. Like, yeah, he needed to swap, but
literally
for that.
Just last episode you said he didn't get voted out, and that was why he was the best. So you can't play that card on me.
Yes,
Yeah,
I can.
but he didn't get voted out because of potentially something that he did to get him to that point. This is just mechanic in the game.
Yeah, that John had no control over. You can't. I mean, you can still give it to him, but you can't award him credit for that.
I can award him credit for that.
You can't. That was something. The pure luck happened in the game that John benefited from.
Yeah.
If a pure luck thing happens, you can't give credit or take credit away to anybody. It's what they do next.
Well, I don't think that anybody on the other tribe played particularly well. I think they did the smart thing. Are you going to say that the best player was Rory just because he survived?
No, I'm going to give it to Scout.
Oh, wow.
Scout did a good job of dividing the tribes in her favor. The way she set it up, it was kind of like, well, it's obviously which one Scout is going to get put on because of Sarge is going to pick that tribe, so Scout's going to go over here. It ended up working very well in her favor because of how she divided it up. So I think she kind of read what Sarge was going to do. And then she also did the right thing in getting rid of Bubba. But that was kind of obvious. But so I gave it to Scout.
See, I figured you were going to go for Amy, just for recognizing the whole situation. But at the same time, maybe it's not like something that's...
I thought Amy came off a little too controlling in this episode.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
Yeah, like the villainous edit was coming out a little bit. I thought like she was trying to like seize control a little bit too much. So
Okay.
I went with Scout.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Ryan on this one. It just makes sense.
That's fine. I was just saying John went from being bottom on his tribe to potentially third from the bottom on his tribe. A prediction that will age like milk. But for worst, weirdly enough, I actually said Amy because I felt like everyone on the Lepevi tribe, the new Lepevi tribe, I couldn't give it to them. I thought they played as well as they could have given the situation. And Amy kind of painted herself as a bit of a villainess, even though she's in the majority alliance. Rory didn't do anything wrong for himself in this episode. In fact, you could argue that because he went from being bottom to somehow swapping with Bubba that he did well. The only one who ends up with a negative is Amy.
See, I went with Eliza because she told her tribe she'd rather get rid of a girl. I mean, yeah, nothing happens from it, but it's like, what are you thinking?
And my thought was Eliza was already probably the bottom of the women in terms of that group of women on that tribe. So I felt like she didn't go anywhere. Like maybe Amy knocked herself down a couple rungs.
Eliza could have blown up her spot by saying that. That's something. It's like, oh, now you're going home.
Correct.
Yeah, she could have very easily gotten home as a result of it.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to side with Ryan on this one, too.
That's fine. You guys, you can keep doing this. I see what it is. You just want brownie points with Ryan.
That's fine.
So I'm going to lose my winner pick again.
Rip.
So my new one ended up going to Sarge. I've liked Sarge a lot this season. His only problem is his arguments with Rory. But between the two of them, Rory's definitely getting them far more negative edit than Sarge. So one could argue maybe Sarge is the hero of this story. He's going to triumph over his archenemy Rory and win the game. Or maybe they're going to come together and make a super alliance. I don't know. Sarge is getting pretty good at it. And I just don't feel very strongly about anybody else in the game on a positive level. I mean, I've liked Amy, but she's kind of taken a heel turn a little bit. And who else is there? Not Eliza.
Chris.
And Chris has gotten kind of a small edit. Like, he had a big first episode, and since then he's been kind of under the radar.
Yeah.
Not a ton of screen time. So I went with Sarge, and I stand by that pick.
You always come crawling back.
Every time.
He always ends up on the Rupert of the season.
Rip Bubba. I liked Bubba a lot. Bubba was a fun character.
It was a hard fall.
Episode 6, Hogtied. So Rory is kind of pissy after Tribal Council, but this is all part of his plan. He's going to try and make him feel bad, and the next day he gives like this really long speech saying like, hey, you know, I don't want to be up on the auction block, and I'm not going to slave around here. Just like, oh, he's trying to white guilt everyone. I respect the move.
and I didn't take it as white guilt. He did very pointedly say auction block several times. I'm like, I mean, chopping block is just as good here. I don't like it if we need to like bring it up like that, but it is, in fairness, a hurdle that he has had to overcome. You know what? Normally, I would say this is a horrible move, but this is never give up. The next thing you try might work. What do you have to lose? You are the one guy on a tribe of women that are in a pretty strong alliance as far as you know. Try to appeal to emotion. Who knows?
It's a Hail Mary.
It's a Hail Mary, but you know what? Every once in a while you come down with it.
Yeah, maybe the move is to do this after an immunity challenge.
I kind of like it because he said, like, I will not try in the challenge. I will not help around camp, so you'll be weaker going into the challenge. And after I'm gone, who's to stop y'all from getting cannibalized? You're dead in the water if I leave, because then you have to start eating each other.
But the other part of it is that he's like, I want to be part of this tribe. I just need you guys to reassure me that I have a shot. You'll at least consider keeping me. And that's all I'm asking for. But it's just some of the terminology he uses, you know. I think it's fairly obvious. We just had the Black Survivors. What was that called? It was basically a discussion about race and Survivor, and I think there's definitely evidence to back up that racial minorities and minorities in general have a disadvantage in Survivor because of casting. You know, if you cast 19 white people, one black person, the black person generally has a disadvantage.
And if you haven't checked out the person of color first boot, I think it's like BIPOC first boot statistics. I think there's an account on Twitter right now that I have seen all over the place. Take a look at it at least one time if you don't think that this is a thing that's happening. It is.
Yeah. So if race can be a disadvantage on Survivor, if there's an opportunity to use it to your advantage, do it. So props to Rory for trying this. And afterwards we get a confessional with him. He's like, that speech was so cheesy. There's no way they bought it. But maybe they did.
If anything, maybe Eliza will buy it and something will happen.
Sure. If you get if you have someone on your tribe who's like ultra liberal and will like feel, you know, white guilt, maybe it'll work. I applaud the attempt.
What I'll say about this is, in terms of reality television, Rory again did this perfectly. He played the game, and then he was honest in confessional. He's like, just so you know, I know this was pretty stupid. And it made for great TV, because they just immediately cut from this corny speech to him being like, oh man, that was bad.
I've mentioned that the men's tribe, the men have been kind of boring. I think only 4 of the 9 men are interesting, but man, is Rory some casting gold. I love Rory.
He is so fun.
He's not a great Survivor player, but he is entertaining.
Great TV. So we get a pig catch and reward challenge, and Eliza is just pathetically bad at this. She can't catch a pig to save her life.
Does anybody else want to try? Well, how about you finish the task that you set out to do, Eliza?
Maybe you shouldn't kick Dolly out.
Everyone's got to catch 2, so Eliza's got to do it. So just go. Eliza's idea is she suggests getting rid of Scout next, because Scout took the easy job where she just had to open and close the gate. So if we get rid of Scout, Eliza could be the weakest person in the tribe and do all the easy stuff. That's her pitch.
The logic is sound.
You know?
There's something there.
Do you know what that is? This is exactly the opposite of what Rory just did. That's something that you tell in a confessional and try and subtly guide in-game. And she's like, no, I'm going to be super honest in-game and then go to my confessional and be like, I'm good at things too.
I'm better than Scout. It's just I have to step up more than Scout. She's not wrong, but I just find it hilarious that this is what she's pitching.
And like, if you're saying that you're the second worst on the tribe, you're just giving them a reason to keep around a bigger goat than you. This works on 0 levels.
So over on Lepevi, Julie and Twyla do a great job of bonding with the boys. Sarge, he's like falling head over heels for Twyla, loves her work ethic, they get along great. With Bubba gone and Sarge doesn't like Rory, he brings Twyla into his Final Four plan. So Sarge and Twyla got a Final Four deal.
It's a good move. Mm-hmm. Especially you don't really know how much you can trust Rory, so probably don't want to rely on him for Final Four.
Don't trust Twyla too much, but this is good for both of them. Always have your options open. So we get to the immunity challenge, and Rory does really great. Nails it, but then Leanne blows everything. She's, just trash in the challenge.
You need to have some skill in the water. Leanne couldn't hold her breath long enough to go about 5 feet underwater and move some... I think like tiki pieces.
Buoy or tiki. Yeah, it was tiki pieces.
It was like tiki pieces under the water, and she couldn't even go under for a second. Now, granted, everyone who finished their leg of this relay looked burned out.
Yeah.
But all the more reason to make sure that you're physically fit enough to at least finish the challenge. It's not going to end up hurting her, but just good to point out that Rory did do well, but Leanne blew to hell in high water.
Yeah, Rory arguably did better than anyone else in the challenge.
Oh, absolutely. He caught Sarge.
Yeah,
he caught and passed Sarge.
He made up a ton of time for his tribe. So Rory was incredible, but Leanne destroyed all that momentum. So they go back to camp. So we got 3 obvious people on the chopping block, right? Obviously Rory. Eliza blew the reward challenge. Leanne blew the immunity challenge, right? It's obviously going to be one of those 3. Amy's going to go off and get some manioc. And Lisa's like, hey, can I go with just in case you're not around so I know where it is? Amy's like, what? What do you mean just in case I'm not around? Well, now we got to vote off Lisa. What?
This is a great example of how playing the game too hard might get you overthinking it a little bit. Because I don't think this was a Freudian slip at all. I literally think Lisa meant if you're on the beach and you are elsewhere and we want to go get some manioc, I'll know where it is. But Amy heard that as, after we vote your booty out of here, we can still get the manioc.
Yeah, it's a combination of overthinking on one side and underthinking on the other, because you still have to be careful about just how you're phrasing things, and that's the underthinking side that Lisa did.
Absolutely. This is what happens when there's carelessness in encoding and decoding any kind of message.
So Scout suggests voting off Eliza, which is fair. Scout does not like Eliza. Eliza's not good at the challenges. Okay.
Also a threat to flip whenever.
Sure, you can't trust her. But Amy says no. She would rather vote Lisa. Lisa's standing right there, and Amy says this to her face.
And Lisa's like, wait, what? And then Amy's like, sorry, tough noodles. I don't like you. I would trust Eliza over you 100 times out of 100.
Oof. To her face. It's just like, what is happening?
And Lisa's like, wait, I have absolutely no clue what's happening right now. And Amy's like, you said you wanted to know where the manioc was. That's all I needed to hear. I do think that this solidifies one lesson, and one lesson only. If someone is gunning for you, you need to gun back. Don't try and redirect lightning. You need to go on the offensive. You need to recognize Amy obviously wants me out. Okay, we need to make the alliance choose me or Amy, because I think that Lisa's inaction here might have sealed her fate. There's no guarantee that Amy doesn't win out, but I think Rory would have ended up being a swing vote, probably.
Yeah, Eliza maybe too. Yeah, Lisa is just like, no, we'll just go for Rory, just like the original plan was, and she needed to go after Amy. It ends up being 4 votes for Lisa, 2 votes for Rory because Scout refuses to turn on Lisa because she's loyal to the Alliance, which is dumb on Scout's part. Because Scout knew where the votes were going. Just pile on. Lisa's not going to be on the jury. This is a terrible move for everybody except Rory.
Rory's just sitting there just like, all right.
Poor Rory. Like, Rory's probably thinking, wow, my speech did something.
Maybe it did.
Maybe it did.
Maybe it did.
But seriously, I don't know why Lisa goes home. Rory would have been a better choice. Even Eliza would have been a better choice here.
Yeah.
Why is Lisa getting voted out here? What? Wild, man. I got nothing. This is insanity. Derek, who did you have for best player of the episode?
Rory, not to go back and say, like, because he survived, but he never gave up. He did enough to get in on the goods with Amy and Scout and Eliza, honestly, and obviously didn't do anything to sink his game, and apparently that's all it took this episode.
Plus, he was amazing in that challenge.
Yes, and he was amazing in the challenge.
And people will be like, oh, maybe we should keep him around because he's good at stuff. Yeah, it's Rory.
Sounds good.
And then for worst, I'm just going to go ahead and again grab the low-hanging fruit and say Amy for voting out, like, arguably tied for her best alliance member for literally reading too far into it and starting to cannibalize the women for no reason.
Plus, telling her to her face.
Yes, never a good move.
Yeah, it's Amy.
Again, this is a volcano. Like, even
Yep.
now with Rory on the tribe, this is still a volcano of a tribe.
I love Yasser. Yasser's a great tribe.
And Amy's a great villain.
Oh, yes. Episode 7, Anger, Threats, Tears, and Coffee.
Again, these episode titles are like Panic at the Disco songs. They're way too long.
Derek with the zingers tonight.
That's a good one. I like that. So John K is super lazy. And if your entire tribe works hard, don't be the laziest person on the tribe. Never be the laziest person on the tribe. Just a good rule of thumb. The start of the John downfall here.
Yes, the start.
So Rory tries to, like, talk to Amy and Leanne, and he kind of wants to, like, get in a real alliance with them. But they're, like, weirdly dismissive of him and just, like, not interested, and he gets kind of pissed. So it's bad all around, but it's just like, Amy, Leanne, why aren't you, like, talking to him a little bit more?
Yeah, it might be a good idea.
You could use him for something.
This is where you need to be amicable. I mean, it's always best if you can disguise it and make everybody feel like they're on equal footing, especially if you have enough belief in your own alliance. But yeah, sir, they don't operate on conventional logic, especially not anymore. I feel like that went out the door with Lisa. Now Scout is our sane person, and
And Scout's kind of a hippie weirdo.
That's all you need to know.
I love her for it. I'm glad she's still here. But, I mean, yeah, she's our eyes now.
Yeah, no, I love all these women. I want them all to stick around. I kind of want them to crush the men just because they're more interesting. Which is not how... That's actually interesting on this rewatch, because when I first watched the season, I was rooting for the men, because... Men!
Man!
You mean a 4th grade boy
Was rooting for the men.
was rooting for the big boys?
Wow.
Shocking, I know.
Shocker.
But on this watch, I'm like, I'm rooting for these women, just not because they're super likable, but because they're so entertaining that I hope all the women make it and they're the last ones standing, kind of.
At this episode, I was saying, they set it up pretty early, in my opinion, for a LePevy loss. They had some really obvious foreshadowing in there. Don't remember what it was. But I wanted the remaining Yasser to make the merge, just because I wanted to see what happens.
So Julie talks to Twyla, and this is actually a pretty ingenious move.
This is great.
So we haven't seen much of Julie until this point, but Twyla's has been promised a Final Four deal by Sarge. So Julie's talking to Twyla, and Julie's like, so did they promise you a Final Four deal too? And Twyla's like, yeah, they did. Wow, they really played me, huh?
Cut to Julie confessional. They promised me no such thing. I am a boss.
Julie's coming out party.
Yep.
She came out swinging. It was great.
I honestly had that as one of the best moves of the pre-merge because, again, that's one of those just throw it at the wall, see if it sticks. But if you say, like, oh, did they promise you Final 5? Then no, it doesn't work anymore. Or maybe, Twyla thinks, like, okay, well, at least I'm in the 4 and the 5. But no, because she hits the nail on the head, this becomes so much more credible. This was great. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, because before I'd been texting you guys, I'm like, I can't remember Julie's name, and all of a sudden I'm like, hello, Julie. I will not forget your name anymore.
Welcome
this was
to the game, Julie.
This
Welcome
was
to the
amazing.
game.
And because this is right before the merge, again, because I'm not a hypocrite, this is exactly the time to start waking up. So, like, I'm rooting for Julie now. Yeah. Love it.
Kind of see why Jeff Probst dates her for a long time.
Yeah.
So we go to the immunity challenge, and it's a slingshot immunity challenge, and Yasser wins mostly thanks to Rory. I think Scout does a pretty good job too, but Rory's on fire in this challenge.
Rory goes beast mode.
So good for Rory. He definitely saves himself here.
Yep.
So Chad is kind of on to Julie. He's like, she's smart and she's playing. Yeah, Chad's right on the money. Everything Chad says to Chris is like, yeah, that's correct, Chad. And Chris is completely falling hook, line, and sinker for Julie. Like, nah, man, I don't think she's playing us at all.
I think she'll stay with us.
I think she'll stay loyal the whole entire time. Julie's smart, man. So, yeah, Chad has Julie booked to rights, I think.
And to Chad's credit, he doesn't force the issue as soon as his alliance starts to push back on him a little bit, which I think is the right move right now. You have time to correct course moving forward. But it's always good if your BS meter is on point.
The problem comes from John, because John wants Chad out, because if Chad gets the end, he'll win because he's missing a leg. So John wants to get rid of Chad. Everyone else would be fine with getting rid of John, and I think Chad would be the person to be like, I don't know about that. But now it's like, oh, he's coming for me? Well, I guess we got to get rid of John now. So John kind of shoots himself at the foot a little bit, so he's going to need a prosthetic leg.
Yeah, I saw that coming.
I didn't see it coming until halfway through.
You're like, I'm committing to this joke. All right, here we go.
So tribal count's going to end up being 5 votes for John, 1 vote for Chad. This is a bad move, I think. It should have been Julie.
Even if John is gunning for Chad, you could have settled those waters pretty quickly and vote out Julie. If not for any other reason other than Sarge and Chris prefer Twyla. And I guess I don't know that's true, but Twyla does seem like she is better assimilated with the men. I'm assuming that Sarge has talked to Chris and Chad about Twyla being their fourth. There's really no reason to have kept Julie around. So I don't get it. Yeah, it's the wrong move.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at it as trying to get out a woman to make it a 5-5 split with potentially going into a merge, like you never know, but that would cut it down to 5-5.
When Survivor seasons start with specific themes for each tribe, white collar, blue collar, no collar, whatever, brain, beauty, brown, whatever it is, men versus women, you want to have at least equal numbers going into the merge, because I think people will stick to a label. Rather, if it's just like a random amalgamation, like on Ghost Island, it was just random tribes. I think people are more likely to stick to their labels than if they don't have a label. Granted, I think you want the majority no matter what, but if you have a label, men versus women, I think it's especially true. So I think 5v5 would be a much more ideal way to go than 4-6.
And from what I've seen, I think that the term flipper carries more weight in seasons that are divided as such. So I'm absolutely backing up your point. If you are a flipper on Brains, Bronze, Beauty, Chaos Cast, you are forever branded. You can go down the line. So I absolutely agree with you. You want to go in with minimum equal numbers here.
But they're not going to. Bad move on the men. Good move on the women. So best player, I got Julie for her tricking of Twyla and not getting eliminated.
I had Rory because he dominated the immunity challenge. Even though he had this weird dismissive confrontation with Amy and Scout, he still saved himself. And again, forward thinking, he's going to make the merge because of it and be back with some friendly faces. But yeah, if you save yourself, I have to give it to you.
I would say Julie, for sure.
Rory literally saved himself by dominating a challenge. You're giving it to Julie? I call BS.
Julie saved herself too.
You literally said earlier, like, wow, Julie, hi, I notice you now, like, from what you're doing.
And Julie saved herself too.
Saved herself and gave the women the advantage going into the merge.
We don't know that she saved herself. We know that she might have put up a wall between Twyla and the men.
Here's what I think happened. Julie got in good enough with Chris for sure, and it seems like Sarge as well, and saved herself. She should have gone home tonight. She didn't, and she was barely mentioned. The only person who did was Chad. So I think she did save herself with her social game, not her physical game. Worst player, I had Chris. He seemed to be the most played by Julie of the men. He got rid of John, and what was interesting is John said he considered Chris his closest ally left in the game. So Chris cut someone who was loyal to him. This was a bad move for Chad, Sarge, and Chris. But of the three, I think it was the worst for Chris. So Chris is my worst player of the episode.
I also had Chris for the same exact reason. When I was thinking about it, it's kind of like, maybe one person is your best friend, but you're not their best friend. That might have been the case with Chris. He didn't realize that he had John in his pocket. If he had known that, Chris seems like a pretty savvy guy. He'd want to keep him around. I don't understand why he would consciously pick Julie over John in that case. Still a bad move for not being socially aware enough to connect the dots. And now, again, the men are down going into the merge. So it's bad for all the men, but worse for Chris.
Yep.
So we're at the end of the pre-merge where we got 10 people left going into the merge. So of these 10 people left, we're going to give out our best and worst player of the pre-merge. But the only people who are up, who can win these awards are the 10 people left. We ignore everyone who's been voted out so far. So of these 10 people, who would you guys say is the best of the pre-merge?
I say that Chris is. I think he's done a really good job being a chameleon while remaining in a powerful, influential position. He never really lost that control. I'm interested to see how he's going to have to come in from kind of a bottom position going into the merge. I mean, the men are down, but they kind of have Twyla, but Twyla could go either way. I don't think that Twyla is a better player than Chris, but I'm interested to see how Chris does going into the merge. But I think he was best of the pre-merge.
I don't think you can give it to Chris because of this last episode. I thought was very bad for the men, and that's why I'm going with Julie as the best player of the pre-merge. She was on the wrong side of a couple of votes early on, but she recovered from those bad turns of events well. You know, she had other people in her alliances who were losing their mind, and Julie was just even-keeled the whole time. She's like, well, that sucks, but, you know, let's try again. And that's the best you can do because you're going to be on the bottom sometimes. That's just natural Survivor. And I think Julie handled those ill twists of fortune better than anyone else in the season. And then in this last episode, she played Twyla and the men seemingly like a fiddle. And also it helps that a lot of all 10 of these people are pretty flawed. And there isn't a truly great standout. But, you know, in regards to Chris, I just think that last episode was so bad for the men. Wipes all of them off the table. Can't give it to anybody on Yasser because that's just a train wreck. That leaves Twyla and Julie, and I just think Julie is clearly a better player than Twyla.
I don't think that Twyla is the choice as second place. I do think that Julie is the next best player. So, I mean, we're staying heavy on Nulip heavy here. I can't fight Julie. I mean, Julie fits my mold for pre-merge standout or pre-merge great player because literally I was like, who are you? And then all of a sudden, boom, here she is right before the merge, heading in, up the numbers with the women. But again, I do think that Twyla is pretty solid with the men. She's already stated that she is more solid with men, so I think we're going to end up at a 5-5 split. Julie might have some options because she could stay with Twyla, but I also think that Chris and Julie are on equal footing. Even if we did see one slip up because of Julie for Chris at the end, Chris was in a power position the whole time because of his ability to play well from what he was given, and he did make sure that Sarge didn't take the whole thing off the rails early on and did keep their alliance together, and that was the right move. And also knowing that, hey, they're not going to keep giving us super physical challenges. We can get rid of threats now, and that was a lot of him as well. So I do think that they both are the best, but I just gave edge Chris because I thought that he played more.
Well, I think that you can basically just wipe Yasser completely off the table here, and then look over at Lepevi. And I think the four that you need to look at, obviously, are Sarge, Chris, Twyla, and Julia. And I was actually debating more between Chris and Twyla than anything. I think you're using recency way too much here. Julie was basically notable in this last episode, and that's about it. And same with the negative towards Chris, is that there's negative towards him, but it was mostly just in this last episode. So I feel like I would rather compare between Chris and Twyla than anything, just because overall there's not really a lot of great stuff with like Twyla, but there's not a whole lot of like really bad negatives either.
She did have a temper issue quite a bit when she was specifically on the women's tribe. She got into a couple heated exchanges and was kind of a loner at times. And that was kind of what knocked her out of contention for me, even though she did assimilate well with the men. So the second half of the pre-merge, Twyla rocked. But it's the first half that kind of knocks her off the pedestal for me.
Gotcha. Either way, I would probably give the slight edge to Chris, but I think Twyla and Julia are both up there. But it's more just I just didn't see enough, like, or I guess in this case hear enough from Julie to be able to give her the best of the entire pre-merge.
But I think in the past, I can't remember if one or both of you have said this, but I'm pretty sure one of you did. Not being visible in the pre-merge is a good thing because you're just trying to survive. You're saying that like it's a bad thing to Julie, and it's not.
If you don't see them, then it's hard to know that they're actually a good player. Like, you need some more from them than just being invisible.
I see what you're saying. So even though Julie checks a good box, because I know you and I typically think...
She just checked it once.
Yeah, we think similarly about pre-merge players.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't pick Rupert to be best of the pre-merge in Pearl Island. Julie checks the box for chameleoning, and she checks the box for having some game know-how, but I do think that Chris checks more for did things in the pre-merge. Julie had that really late pre-merge surge, but Chris was more of a guiding factor while remaining a chameleon in the pre-merge, and that's where I think Josh is coming from, and that's also the angle that I was working.
Julie had the surge, Chris had the dip. That last episode was not good for Chris. He won worst player of the episode.
And I guess if you're more looking at like the average of like the entire thing, I would still put Chris above, like, if you're looking at just like averaging out the episodes.
Okay, I don't understand, but
Julie.
Okay,
If you score 10 runs in the first inning, it doesn't matter if Julie scores 9 in the 9th.
But I wouldn't say Chris scored 10. he was fine. Chris is definitely top 2. I just think I think Julie's the clear best, and I don't understand where you guys are coming from, but whatever. Derek is doing his Chris cosplay tonight, wearing his red tank top.
I didn't even mean to do that.
So that's a fun fact. Who do you got for worst player of the pre-merge, Derek? And again, it can only be of the 10 people who made the merge.
It's Eliza.
Oh, yeah.
It is no question. You annoyed everybody right off the bat. Nobody trusts you. You can't fit in anywhere. Literally, the only reason you're still around is because Amy made a really horrible decision in voting out Lisa, and it probably would have been Rory otherwise. But you are clearly the bottom of the Women's Alliance. You're always a threat to flip. You don't seem to have any idea what you're doing. I am honestly shocked that she is this bad at Survivor and made it this far.
It's Eliza. It's hands down Eliza. She's terrible. Dishonorable mention to Rory.
Yeah, I was going to say dishonorable.
He saves himself. And Eliza almost gets herself kicked out of the game.
Multiple times.
Yeah,
I'm just agreeing here, by the way, with what you guys said.
Let's talk winner picks. Derek, you still have Chris in the game. Josh, you still have Leanne. I lost Brady. I lost Bubba. I'm on Sarge. So, we're stuck with these winner picks. You can't change them. But, if you could, would you change yours to someone else, and who?
I've thought about this a long time. I think I'd stick with Chris, but I want to throw out the idea of switching to Twyla, because we've seen a redemptive arc from her. We've seen some depth from her on edit side. We know that she can go with the women or with the men at the merge, and we know that she has the social chops, not super social, but enough of a bond to take her deep into the merge. And then, I mean, maybe strength of head it takes for the rest of the way. She can certainly hold up with the men in terms of individual immunity challenges, not to say that they typically dominate those, but if they are physical, she can handle them. And if she does make top 4, who's to say that the men going, rah, 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 which one of us played the best game? We got to take each other out now. She makes it to the final 2 and then wins with a majority woman jury. Twyla would be a perfectly good person to switch to at the merge, in my opinion.
And I'm going to go ahead and say that's correct, because I'm going to switch to Twyla. If I could, I would switch from Sarge to Twyla. Again, I'm going to just discount Yasser right off the bat. The men are in the minority, so I'm going to discount them, and we're back to Twyla and Julie. I think Julie's the better player, but Twyla has the edit to go along with it. If I could, I would switch to Twyla.
And this sort of stuff, because now you can start to take the recency part of it into effect a little bit more. You get the really recent rise from Julie, and it's like, okay, now is she going to build this into the merge and through the post-merge? Who knows? But this is where it's a little tougher to think about. I think you have to pick a woman here. I think that it's going to fall on gender lines a little bit more this season, and now with the most recent vote, the men are going to be down going into the merge. So I'm just gonna like you eliminate all men right now, and then not confident in Scout, Amy, Leanne. I would almost I would almost be okay like leaving with her, just because it's neutral at best or neutral at worst, and then who knows, maybe she could surprise in the post merge. But I think I would feel a lot more better with a Twyla or Julie. I don't know. I feel like Twyla could just be influenced a little bit too much to pick her, and I think I would actually side with Julie here.
Okay.
But I'm stuck with Leanne.
Yes, we're all stuck. All right, so any final thoughts going into the merge on this season?
Just reiterating, I don't think this is must-watch Survivor. This is pretty fun pre-merge. It's got a pretty fun twist. It's got some pretty cool characters. If you want to see an earthquake, I mean, that's kind of cool to see all the different, vampire bats flying off over the ocean and stuff. I mean,
if you want to see a wacky tribe.
If you want to see a wacky tribe, if you're being selective, I think you could give this one a skip.
Same.
I just want to say... Yasser is amazing.
Yes, Yasser is amazing.
Derek, anything you want to say? I know we don't do the official weather report for Days of Rain, but anything you want to address with the weather report so far? Anything stood out to you?
You're next to a volcano.
Yeah, there's a volcano, so, I don't want there to be a magma hole opened in the ground anywhere near me. That sounds awful. And then, of course, the earthquake, which we haven't seen. I don't know if we ever see again. And I don't think it rained. So take from that what you will. It does seem like there is options, especially after they had the native come and help them find the sources of food. It wasn't just the plantains and then what fish they could catch anymore, so they don't seem too hard off. So it seems like this is one of the, at least for the moment, one of the easier seasons now that they have fire, because it was a rough couple days at the beginning, but they came out of it pretty quickly.
So last thing we got to talk about is the most memorable moment. Halfway through the season now, Josh, what do you got so far as our front runner for most memorable moment of the season?
Yeah, I think the finalist that we're going to choose is the only one I really pointed out. And so from the pre-merge, the representative of the most memorable moment is the very beginning, when they land on the beach. I guess not their beaches, but when they land on the beach of Vanuatu, and they come at them with spears, and basically the entire opening sequence of it, just because of how unique it is.
I think that's a good one. I would have to agree.
Yeah, and there are some other cool things like the earthquake and stuff like that, but honestly, it's stuff that I didn't remember happening until it actually came up with us talking.
Sure. All right, well, you can follow us at Castaway Pod on Twitter, and then give us 5-star reviews on iTunes, which we will read on the podcast. So give us those. We love 5-star reviews.
They're our favorite number of stars.
It's true. It's our favorite number. You guys got anything else?
I'm excited to watch the post-merge. Let's see if we do get some must-watch Survivor.
I'm good.
All right, this has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.